All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. And thanks for joining us from around the globe. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Tanmay and I'm part of the Basecamp developer community team. Today we have a great lineup of speakers who will be talking about how microservice application architectures and cloud computing have changed the workflows and responsibilities used in developing and deploy applications in new cloud native environments. Let me also introduce you to speakers. We have from IBM, we have Alan Little, who is the IBM Cloud Pak for applications chief architect and is responsible for the architecture and delivery of IBM's environment for building, securing, deploying, and managing applications in the cloud. He's been involved in the cloud for a number of years and excited to bring the environment to customers. We also have John Smith. John is worldwide offering lead for Temenos in LinuxONE. Based out of Brighton in the UK. He has 25 years of experience in financial services field. His main area of expertise is creating value propositions for IBM technology, for clients and for independent software vendors with the financial services sector. And we also have Harpreet Chhatwal. Harpreet has been in various technology focused roles at IBM, from being part of DevOps, offering management to his current role as building DevOps and cloud native ISV ecosystem for IBM Z and LinuxONE. He's Open Group Certified Master IT Specialist and IBM Certified Level 2 Technical Specialist in Systems and Infrastructure. So I welcome you all and thank you for giving time and taking this webinar. To all the audience, if this is the first time that you're joining, I want to make sure that you know this, that we have a Q&A panel available for you to post your questions. So in case if you have questions during this session, make use of that. We have experts monitoring the Q&A panel. We have Chris who's monitoring it and other experts monitoring the panel. So make sure you use Q&A and not the chat window. We are recording this webinar and it will be available on Basecamp as a resource later. So you can even share it with your friends in case they missed it today. We will also be running few polls during the session. So make sure you make use of it and make the session more fun. So let me now invite Alan to take it up and start the session. Over to you, Alan. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. So as said, my name is Alan Little. I'm the distinguished engineer responsible for Cloud Pak for applications and some of the new AI technologies we're bringing to help develop applications. So let's jump right into the presentation. The agenda today is we're going to talk about Cloud Pak for applications and some of the app mod use cases and how they, we'll touch on how they apply to Temenos. Cloud native development with governance, taking Temenos into account. Then I'll turn it over where we'll talk a little bit about CI/CD for Temenos and how it applies on zSystems. And then Temenos is a stepping stone to cloud on the various IBM platforms. So if we look at the existing environment and where we think things will go over the next, say, 10 years, we're starting out into the traditional kind of IT three-tier architecture environment. That would be, release 18 or before of Temenos. And we're starting down a path to modernize applications, making those applications, first step is getting them into containers and then working to extend them and then moving towards new microservices kind of architectures. And R19 and beyond is where Temenos starts to play in that environment. I expect these things will coexist for a number of years. So back early in my career, when we started WebSphere, there was a big push thinking that new object-oriented runtimes were going to replace what existed, say, in IMS and KICS. That wasn't true. They enhanced and they extended, and various traditional runtimes that exist on platforms like ZOS continue to thrive to this day. They may not be extended. You may be able to do new and modern things with new technologies, but they're still there. So we do kind of expect to see these things coexist over a period of time, hopefully a long time. So last year, it's been just about a year, IBM acquired Red Hat, the Red Hat product. And what we really think is this brought the best of two worlds together. Red Hat is very strong in operating systems. They have a very good Kubernetes implementation with OpenShift. And IBM brings to the table middleware. IBM right now, in the past year, has put more technology on OpenShift than exists from any other company. So Red Hat and OpenShift really provides what we think will be the new environment for building cloud native applications. And that we think those applications, will use a lot of the technology we bring forward in the Cloud Pak and the Cloud Pak technologies. Cloud Pak for applications specifically ships OpenShift as part of the product today, but it's really targeted at 3 use cases. Being able to run existing applications. So we, in the box, we think customers will start with, applications like WebSphere and JBoss and Tomcat and Spring Boot. All, those things, Temenos uses those sets of technologies today, but we ship and entitle you to run the applications that you do today with the Cloud Pak. Then we provide a set of technologies I'll go into here in a second on how you can begin to modernize those applications. Both getting them into containers and then starting to think about how you microservice enable those applications so that they can be enhanced and modernized going forward. And then finally, building new cloud native applications from the ground up. While I admit that's probably the least used right now, but I think people are starting to understand that this cloud native technologies gives them tremendous flexibility and tremendous capabilities. So I think all 3 of these, the Cloud Pak for apps provides capabilities to do, and we put them in one package primarily for the reason that we want to meet customers where they are today, and we want to enable them to quickly grow towards a more modern ecosystem, a more modern platform where they go. So building new applications, there is a focus there, not just from IBM, but from others like Temenos. And so you'll be able to build these new cloud native applications, starting at R19 and beyond using these technologies. So just to kind of quickly break down, the Cloud Pak for applications really comes in almost 3 separate segments of the ability to run existing applications. So in the box, you're entitled to run, the traditional WebSphere ND, WebSphere-based Liberty components running in VMs like you do today. It also gives you the ability to run JBoss Enterprise Application Server. So you come with licenses so that you can continue to run what you run today. Finally, we start with a set of modernization technologies, and I've spent a lot of time myself looking at different vendors' modernization technologies, and I think ours are second to none. We have something called Transformation Advisor. Transformation Advisor's purpose in life is to scan applications and give you an assessment of what we think it would take to re-engineer that, first to get it into containers, and then second, to be able to start modernizing it and getting it to cloud native. So it kind of gives you two views. It will give you an assessment if we were to have our services organizations do this work. How much do we think it would cost? We then also give you recommendations of, is this an easy one? For the really easy ones that we think there really are no code change for, we'll actually do whatever minimal packaging requirements are to get it ready to go into a container. We have some moderate ones, which we will tell you the lines of codes that need to change to get it into a container. And then we'll tell you the ones that are not so easy. And the breakdown is that we see is usually it's about 40% easy, 40% moderate, and then 20% are the really difficult ones. To address the more difficult ones, and I don't have it on this chart, we have a beta that we recently released of something called mono to micro. What it is an AI-led set of technology that will actually go in and do deep analysis of the application and give you recommendations on how an application should be broken into pieces, and to give you that, take that last 20%, the really difficult ones, and how to break them up into reasonable and actually help you do some of the breakup. But I won't say that it's 100% automated, but it's certainly AI-led. We can show you where the seams of an application are. And if you in other words, if you cut here, move this piece off out into a microservice, it will have the least interactions, it'll be more the right interactions patterns for those things. And right now, nobody in the industry has anything like this today. So it's something that I'd really recommend somebody looking at. And then finally, the build new cloud native applications. This has been over the past year in integration with what we acquired with Red Hat. It is where we embed the Red Hat OpenShift runtime. On top of that, we use the Red Hat runtimes capabilities and repositories, and we've augmented that with the WebSphere Liberty runtimes, and a lot of the technologies we delivered around Node.js. IBM was fairly well invested in Node, and so we've kind of joined these two things together and market them under Red Hat runtimes. And then finally, there is a hosted IDE that are in code-ready workspaces. And then on top of that, we provided patterns and capabilities for building new cloud native applications. And I'll kind of explain how that patterning works here in a second. And I'm not going to skip this. So back to modernization briefly. The heart of modernization is really around embracing new technology. So cloud, containers, Kubernetes. In order to really embrace a lot of this new technology, you have to decouple the components. There's a set of patterns out there. There's various. One you might hear referred to as 12-factor applications, but there are other microservice-based architectures. It's really about adopting agile technology and taking what were monolithic kind of applications and breaking them down into smaller things so that you can update them faster and you can follow a process whereby you can deliver applications to the market faster. And then finally, once you've done that, you can begin to start looking at speed of development through DevOps, continuous integration, automated testings, and in kind of an SRE kind of process. So we do have this approach. We talked about it for transaction TA, being able to analyze the application to gain insights. How long do we think it will take? We can also tell you the code that you haven't updated a while that's about to go out of service from the various Java standards. We can containerize the monolith and then ultimately start looking at extending it, bringing in new technologies, and refactoring it. So that's kind of the approach, and we provide tooling and steps along the way. There's not, in my mind, any magical button that you can press to say, take this application and give me a really refactored application. There is some applications are in fact microservices today, and you can kind of get there, but it requires some work, and you need to follow patterns and build upon what the learning is out in the industry. So we work with our services organizations a lot on modernizing applications. A lot of the technology we're bringing down into the product is based upon their learning, and their learning gets fed into some of our models for our AI-led kind of modernization. So let's see. So I think I've talked about Transformation Advisor. That gives you a general picture and can take you to what it does. And there are various tools and services to help you get started there. Now, Cloud Pak for applications and what it does for building new applications. The kind of the problem space for that today is some of the early adopters, and I started this about 2 years ago, Cloud Pak for applications. I was at a conference in San Francisco, and my manager told me to go make this happen. And I managed to build something, and over the past six months later that we got out and we had customers try it, and we continue to enhance it as we go forward. But what we saw 2 years ago was customers were building a lot of this technology themselves. There are lots of open source projects that can help you do this. If you look at the standards body called the CNCF, that is where you can go find things like Kubernetes, Etsy, the Vault. There are different standards and runtimes, micro profiles. There are literally hundreds of these services, and each were putting subsets of them together and going out. And it might even have been different departments in the same company that were putting things out. The problem with that is it's an n factorial problem where n is well over 100 of the number of permutations that were out there. So it reminded it looks very much like what Java looked like at its beginning. There were lots of standards for different things, but there was no overall blueprint for how you would put it together. There were thousands of ways that you could use these things, and there may have been a dozen that worked, that scaled, that did what you want. So what our view is to go out and provide guidance on how to take these various open standards, bring them together, and provide the blueprint for how one should bring things together. And working between ourselves and Red Hat and a few others, we came up with what we thought was an important model. One of the important questions we had early on was governance and how you did this. I mean, there's two ends of a spectrum that are pulling on each thing. There is a set of decentralized decisions where, as I said, developers want to be able to pick the open source projects they choose. They want to be able to do things. They want to make decisions really fast. And that works for a period of time until the developer either retires or moves on to another job. And then somebody's holding on to something and they go, what is this? Why did they do this? Why did they pick this language? There are no skills in this environment. And then there's the centralized decision makers where you have somebody who wants consistency. We want to do this at scale in our enterprise. We want developer speed, but they have to put rules in place, and developers don't like rules. So what we did is try to find what is the happy medium. We want to provide a mechanism that we can create almost a PaaS-like service where developers can choose options to develop things or propose new options back to their centralized IT environment, and giving the developer the freedom to do what they need, but also putting decisions back into the hands of where they need to be. So this is a pendulum that kind of swings back and forth in companies. When we started this 2 years ago, it was very out developer led. And over the past 2 years, it's back centralized, and it really needs to be somewhere in the middle. So that's kind of what we were trying to provide and produce. So Cloud Pak for Apps has a component that we call Accelerator for Teams. He's trying to enable a multidisciplinary team that includes, solution architects, the operations team, developers, and security teams, and let them each provide what they need to provide into a set of components that enable applications to get developed and places the responsibility for pieces into the right persona, the right job. And we do that by creating something called an application stack and providing pipelines that enable those stacks to be built and deployed in things moving forward. So we want to enable you to kind of innovate with confidence. So we start by creating these constructs called stacks, and stack is nothing more than metadata. Here's the runtime base container that I want to use, that that operations might have augmented with the latest monitor. The security engineer might have augmented it with the latest, plugins to their security system. But then the developer can go off and take each of these stacks, build their business logic so they can focus on the business logic and wire them together in such a way that they have applications. But when she's done, all the security stuff is integrated, all the operational capabilities are integrated, everything has been done together. And so what we're really trying to do is empower those teams to get started quickly. We want an overall improved efficiency, not just for the developer, but for operations and security and others, and then be able to scale this up at a massive scale. So the number of containers in this environment grows significantly. I've been working with some companies where, we're talking 30, 50,000 containers under management. So yeah, you have to do this. I mean, this is the right approach to get to the level of scale. You can do a couple hundred without this, but when you start doing a lot more than that, it becomes really difficult. So that's where this technology I'm talking about, Cabanero, it was Accelerator for Teams is an open source project called Cabanero. That's where it's sourced from. So we've done all this development out in the open. We've had lots of other open source projects ask us questions and want to contribute or want to play. So it has been done out in the open. So what we include in this today is these application stacks in a set of developer tools, in a set of CI/CD pipeline tools. So an application stack, you can think of, it kind of has the simplicity of Cloud Foundry. For those that have used Cloud Foundry, you basically create an application and you push it to the environment. The application stack provides that kind of capability, but it also, one of the issues that we've always had around Cloud Foundry is it was very simple, but even to the point of sometimes being simplistic. And what I mean by that is sometimes you can't do what you need to do. And so that's where the power and flexibility of Kubernetes comes. But Kubernetes comes with that complexity, which we also hear complaints. So we tried to come up with a happy medium where you do simple things simply, you enable you to solve the more complex things. So an application stack comes with a base image, and we ship in Cloud Pak for Apps using a universal base image from Red Hat. It comes with the middleware, runtimes, frameworks, tooling that you want to use, and then you place your application on top of it. So we started with a set of micro profile based things based on Open Liberty. We shipped Tomcat Spring Boot. we ship various forms of Node.js. So think of it, and to give you kind of a view of what they are, each of the stacks, we have a description of what's in it. These are what we ship. We expect customers to actually go add things to them or potentially change them. But we provide a set out of the box that actually have been tested. We build applications with them ourselves, and they do kind of work. They also come with a template, so you can structure this so that when I call a particular stack, you get a default project built that will have the application templatized as well. And we've found, recently that's a very, very important thing to reach scale of development. Okay, I'm going to skip a little bit on here. We deliver a set of tooling to support those stacks, to enable the developer to do things. We have a simple command line interface, which is what I prefer to use. We have a set of local IDEs like Eclipse, like IntelliJ, like VS Code. And then for those cases where you want a hosted environment, there is code-ready workspaces from Red Hat, which is based on EclipseJ. It's an entire IDE. In the past, we've tried to build our own IDE, and we found IDEs are a very religious thing. So instead, we backed up and we inserted our technology as plugins into all the more popular IDEs, and that seemed to be a much more palatable development environment for developers. The other thing we include is a set of integrated DevOps toolchains. And what that comes with is we use a set of technology that's embedded in OpenShift that's based on the open source project Tekton. In OpenShift, it's called OpenShift Pipelines. So we ship content into OpenShift that is a set of pre-built tasks and pipelines to build these tasks. It lets you, it's easily integrated in with the various source control systems, the various variants of Git. And what's really nice about this toolchain is it leverages Kubernetes. So Tekton is a project that IBM has been the chief contributor to, along with Google. And Red Hat is taken it and provided a set of UI capabilities on top of it as well. So the industry, I mean, I know a lot of people use Jenkins. Jenkins is a monolithic tool chain. So you have to write everything, whereas Tekton is more componentized. So it's kind of, if you look at where the industry is going, it's going towards technologies like Tekton. Jenkins X, which is the follow-on to Jenkins, actually is integrating with Tekton. So, so what we've done is we read the tea leaves, and we provided a set of technology that enables you to build things as you go forward. And those are the reasons I just mentioned. So what Tekton gives you is we provide a set of tasks, and you can draw a directed graph of these tasks. So when you check a piece of code in, you can do things like linting and unit testing in parallel. You can set up a test environment to build images, run a whole set of tests. You can publish images, and you can put these tasks together almost as a job like you would do on ZOS. Very much like JOS3's dependent job control, if anybody's ever used it. And there are other vendor products that do that for JOS2. So think of it as a job with a set of tasks and logic that take you through the set of tasks. That's what Tekton and OpenShift pipelines provide. And so we provide the task that you can plug in, or you can provide your own tasks. So trying to move forward here. So we ship a lot of these tasks. You can customize them. You might add more things to them. And you can add them to the environment without actually changing our code. So you can mix our stuff and your stuff together to create a really high quality development process coming out the back end. From a developer flow, and I'm getting close here to the last chart, the guys are going to present after me. The thought process here is we have our persona that we refer to as Jane, who's an enterprise developer. Her view in the world is she's got a repository that we call a stack hub of these base stacks that she can start from. She can start and say, I want to initialize a project using, say, the Node.js stack. On her laptop, she gets a template gets run, and she gets a project that she can then use whatever IDE she wants to start adding code to this environment, where she can run, test, debug her application. She can plug it into various things, and ultimately she gets to the point where she saves her application off and she commits the application to Git. These IDE pieces and that inner loop is the CLI and the IDE stuff provides a single set of tools that are in a container. So one of the things you don't get into is developers, getting out of sync in what tools they use to build things. So they're all, that stack has a containerized view of the world, and it performs pretty well too. But you don't get into a case where developer one uses a particular compiler with a fix on and another developer doesn't. And so it kind of solves some of the problems distributed development has as well. So once you drop this into Git, a webhook fires, and we end up doing build and deploy and getting the technology running through your pipeline that does all the checking that you need and gets it deployed into OpenShift. That is the environment that we're in. There are further extensions that we're doing on top of this to bring in patterns of applications and other capabilities, but I don't think we have time here today to kind of go into that. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to, I think it's Harpreet. So let me stop sharing. He can
Thanks, share. Alan. I'll just share my screen. Okay, so thanks, Alan. Guys, my name is Harpreet, and I want to now shift focus to how IBM Z and LinuxONE are fueling the modernization and the digital transformation journey, and how our DevOps tools, be it from the CI/CD tools and the value stream, how we can really integrate and work seamless on the IBM mainframe. Let me talk about DevOps in general. So DevOps, I think we all know, is not just kind of a methodological tool. It's more of a culture with the technology support. And it's a way of working in an organization, breaking down the silos, bringing the application development and the IT ops together, which is quite tough as such, because the application development team would be more focusing on building new features, new capabilities, and pushing on to production. And at the same point of time, the operation side would be responsible to have the system stability and the availability. And it's quite difficult to really get them together. But yeah, in this friction, it's the business that suffers. And that's where DevOps comes into picture to really bring a kind of a process to have these two collaborate better and work together. And if we talk about the DevOps in the current times, it's the modern DevOps, and it's just not dev and ops. It's about everything. It's about the business, it's about the development, security, infrastructure, ops, and everything. And bringing everything together with lean and agile practices for the continuous improvement process end to end. That's what DevOps is all about now. Talking about the value stream for the product team, I think this is quite a big topic, but yeah, in essence of time, let me just give a very high level view that fundamentally in a software delivery, when we want to get the ideas out from the business to the end user, to the customers, that's where the value stream plays a role. We have ideas, and the good ideas needs to be prioritized, and there's a backlog of ideas. But yeah, when we prioritize and move that idea from the idea to experimentation, where it's more of building the idea into developing the code and building and testing and bringing it out to the customer. So a value stream is where it's important to kind of manage this in a holistic manner. And I mean, that's the oversimplified version of value stream, but this is what we need to prioritize and manage the components and how we really break out the things from the idea part to get it used by the customers. Important thing in the CI/CD is driving velocity and quality. And that's where we start from the idea. Let's talk like an application delivery is a pipeline where we really have this framework of idea based on user stories and work items, what should be delivered in terms of adding value to the business and so on. Then it comes to the development phase, where one write the code based on the user story, and then we build these where the package the code and use unit test cases and generic runtimes that will deploy the runtime environments in the test environment, the staging environment, or the pre-production, and then goes into production. And this could be on bare metal, virtualized environments, or the cloud. And then comes the phase of manage, which is about what happens to the application once it goes in the production. And that this phase, after this phase, it's the learning phase which comes, which means the continuous improvement to address not only the faster application delivery, but to focus on quality. And yes, if the quality is really improving the overall delivery, and then feeding it back into the complete cycle, that's where the complete CI/CD cycle comes into picture. And the benefits of having the DevOps overall CI/CD pipeline, the key benefits are from having a velocity and quality. Velocity means how quickly the product or application can be piped through the release pipeline, and quality means what gets delivered at end of the pipeline, and both really needs to be balanced. And in this journey of having the velocity and quality in the pipeline, the other aspects which really kick in are enhanced innovation and reduced costs to bring more agility to the business. I would also like to highlight the relationship between application development and IT ops. And the key use cases for DevOps could be optimizing the core systems like monolithic or legacy or big system of records. And DevOps for the core looks like retrofitting the automation to optimize what we got. The other important use case here is about unlocking the legacy, which is to address the culture, the ways of working, bringing dev and ops together, integrating in a new way. And the other important use case to talk about is it's about unleashing the digital. So with the maturing cloud native applications, Kubernetes and Dockers and whatnot, it's all about integrating things together. Let me talk about the end-to-end strategy here. What we want to do is provide this pipeline as an automation framework for DevOps transformation. And there are few key aspects to the pipeline that must be common. First, it's the SCM. And the SCM should be just one where we have the resources can be shared, and this also acts as a single source of a single place to really integrate the audit reports and automation. Next, it's the artifact repository, where again, there should be one single source to build all artifacts. There are examples like Urban Code to deploy, and there are many other Artifactory which customers are using, be it the Artifactory repository or the Nexus and things like that. And the next part is on the pipeline automation. Again, this is quite important, and quite important for the single CI/CD coordinator. And this is the single place for integration. This provides a single point of audits, and hence also plays a quite important role to really have the complete workflow in place. The build part of it is where there are different build solutions, generally based on what language we're using for development. And likewise for the testing, there are multiple testing tools based on purpose, scope, and the platform. And with the cloud native thing, there are various IDEs, which again are based on the developers and what they really choose to use. This is quite important, where I'll spend some time to talk about what really makes up the pipeline. The other thing out here to really talk about from the overall IT organization is that when you talk to them, they would say that they really already have some sort of central SCM, common build and common deploy tool, but those tools doesn't allow them to easily do what a modern SCM can do, like for example, to add automation test or to add new environment. And for that, I think one really needs to bring modern technology to this CI/CD pipeline. And at the core of DevOps, defined in the pipeline, which provides the underlying infrastructure for the automation. And just to bring the IBM's perspective, IBM's view to the CI/CD pipeline, here I talk about how the DevOps on IBM, specifically if I talk about IBM Z and LinuxONE, how the end-to-end DevOps is in open and flexible environment. The biggest value proposition, which I would like to highlight here, is that no matter what the customer pipeline would be, it may be GitLab or GitHub or whatever, and we can really run the SCM on Z. So no matter what the pipeline of choice, probably whatever, it would work on Z. And we have been porting open source tools on Z as well to really build and strengthen the ecosystem across these things. A few other things to highlight here are that all parts of these pipeline are important. So we can't really pick one area and say that's DevOps. It has to be complete end to end. And I mean, it would be kind of a disservice to our clients if we don't include the entire pipeline. They may focus on different areas at different times, but the entire picture is key to set the scope for each part of it. Another thing to highlight here would be that customer need to really build their pipeline. This is a pipeline of the open source and IBM products that might be used in each area. This could include multiple choices in many boxes here that really overlap each other to show choices. And the pipeline is not in just one direction, it's a circle with feedback along the way. As shown here in this slide, there's a loop between code and build, as well as from the code through test and back. And you can see we have the complete open source and the IBM tools, which really fit in from the code, build, provision, deploy, test, analyze, plan, monitor, and release, the complete end-to-end cycle which goes out here. I mean, I'd like to just sum up here by saying that the IBM DevOps on Z really brings together a comprehensive set of open enterprise-wide industry standard tools and processes with the enterprise level support to really ensure smooth adoption and minimize the risk. And at the heart of modern DevOps practice, it is true integration with the open source capabilities to accelerate continuous delivery of software innovation in a hybrid cloud world. So no matter where the clients are, no matter where they are going and how they want to operate, IBM Z and LinuxONE is integrated with and strengthening their cloud foundation for the mission critical workloads. And I'll like to hand over to John to really talk about. John, if you want, I can continue with the slide navigation for you. Okay.
Yeah, that would be great. Just stay on this slide for a sec, Harpreet. So good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. So John Smith, I look after offerings for Temenos within IBM. Really nice to have this opportunity to come and talk to you today. And before I kick into the slides, I just wanted to take 5 minutes to sort of really set the scene. When IBM purchased Red Hat, and that went through August last year, there were some real similarities on the sort of the early cultural piece that I've seen. I'm an IBMer. We've had Red Hat, IBM, and Temenos working together on things like OpenShift accreditation and bringing some of these stacks to the Temenos versions from R19 onwards. And there's a lot of things in common between the three organizations. We're all focused on this cloud native journey. You know, we see containers as strategic. We see API and microservices as the way the market's going. We have a concept of preferred stacks. So if you went to Temenos today and say, how do I run a Temenos workload, whether that's Transact or Infinity, you know, they'll give you a number of preferred stacks from a number of key vendors, of which IBM and Red Hat are some. And these stacks are locked down so that actually there's better support from Temenos. It's fully certified and tested from, you know, could be a Google, Amazon, Azure, IBM, Red Hat. There are a number of key partners in there. And we are very much aligned with that whole preferred stacks methodology, and I'll talk about some of those. And then actually another key thing culturally is the Temenos are about open and choice and flexibility, and very similar with what Red Hat and IBM are doing. And then finally, where I think we come into our own is around the security and differentiation around that sort of whole move towards confidential computing. So there's a lot of cultural similarities between Temenos, Red Hat, IBM in terms of where we're going. And I just wanted to frame that. And Harpreet, if you go on to the next slide, that'd be great. I wanted to frame this because I think this is important. The reason we put this presentation together for you today is all of the technologies that we've been testing on with Temenos are based around a future towards OpenShift. And the reason we brought Alan and Harpreet on the call today is, you know, Temenos now runs on the side of a mainframe on the zSystems. It can run on Linux, it can run on LinuxONE, it can run on Power, it can run on x86, it can run on IBM's cloud. You know, we've done a lot of work to take it on this journey towards OpenShift container platform and IBM Cloud Paks that Alan talked about. The Cloud Paks are a packaging of software specifically for a certain type of function. And Alan was talking to you about Cloud Pak for applications, which is around, you know, really those three use cases he talked about earlier, where Temenos play heavily around, you know, almost taking traditional apps or refactoring apps or going towards cloud native. Well, the Cloud Pak for applications is one of the key delivery tools for what we're doing on this new stack called Stack 11 that you'll see in the middle. If you look on the left-hand side of the diagram, today, IBM deliver stacks 1, 2, 3, and 5. 3 of them are Linux, 1 of them is AIX based, and they're traditional monolith, so anything before R18. We then deliver a just certified Stack 11, which is, you know, LinuxONE architecture with OpenShift container platform, packaged with Cloud Pak for applications, Red Hat runtimes, and Cloud Pak for integration. So that's a packaging of things like event streams or the Kafka, our version of Kafka, you know, the ability to do queuing, the ability to do integration layer if required, and then all the runtimes and application around that. So it's very relevant because what we're already packaging to deliver the Temenos architecture is actually then giving you the ability to deliver that continuous pipelines and CI/CD process around it. I think that's really important, and it's this package thing. So if we look at the stacks in the middle on the right, the middle stack is for clients who are looking to deploy Temenos on-premise, but like a cloud. So it's like a PaaS-based architecture, infrastructure provided, packaged up, and delivered on-premise, managed by you, the client, as a cloud. And on the right-hand side, we have two cloud patterns we're deploying with Temenos today. One of them is around our IBM Kubernetes service for clients who want an open Kubernetes PaaS layer for containers. And the other one is around a product called ROCs, Red Hat OpenShift Container Service and IBM Cloud. And moving towards a new announcement we have called IBM, or the IBM Financial Services Cloud. So it's you know, and in that space, we're doing a lot of work with Temenos, and they're one of the early adopters of that technology and onboarding onto it. So there's some really exciting times in terms of some of the offerings we've got lined up with Temenos and where we're going. And next slide, please, Harpreet. This gives you a bit more depth around the cloud pattern and where we're going. And probably just to talk about that last point I talked about when I gave you the intro, our patterns are based really around confidential computing and security. So we have an offering called HyperProtect Services. This is the ability to fully lock down the data so that not even the cloud administrator can have any access. There's no chance of any internal threats from the cloud administrators, and we wouldn't have access to any data. The ability to bring and keep your own keys, and then the ability to then not being able to any IBM cloud administrator not having any access. So it's that difference between operational assurance where the cloud vendor will tell you we won't access your data, and actually the difference with IBM Cloud saying we can't access your data, we don't have the ability to do that. And that's a pattern we've put in place with Temenos for the transact layer, but also for what we're doing with Infinity and some of the models there as well. And these are ongoing. So yeah, next slide, please, Harpreet. And just a highlight of one of the technologies that we are in early adoption around and looking for, sort of some of the sponsored users around. We're taking this Stack 11 methodology and then looking to have that managed by IBM Cloud on-prem. So there's some really neat things there. So this is almost taking this OpenShift model, taking the HyperProtect services, layering them onto this LinuxONE device. So you have a confidential computing zero trust device sitting in your data center, managed by IBM Cloud, but with the ability to not always have to be connected to the cloud. So it can still run standalone. And that's unique compared to some of the other offerings on the market in this space. And this is one of our new launches that we're exploring with the cloud team at Temenos. It's early stages, but looking to launch something next year across the year at some point, probably first half. So just wanted to touch on that today. And then next slide, please, Harpreet. And then really just to say, look, if anything is of interest that you've heard today, we actually usually like to do a more of a deeper dive around DevOps, and specifically a Temenos deep dive around DevOps. So you're running any version of Temenos today. How do you take that journey towards from traditional version of Temenos on R18 or before, using different app tiers? Maybe it's WebLogic or WebSphere or JBoss, or maybe you're using MQ or IIB, maybe using Oracle DB2, Microsoft SQL, whatever you're looking at. How do you take that journey from that three-tier architecture to that cloud-native approach that Temenos have deployed within R19 and enhanced further with R20, and will enhance further with R21 when it's released next year? How do you take that journey, and what tooling should you use? That's certainly something we can help you with. So if anyone has any interest in that afterwards, please just drop me a line. My details are here. And we really appreciate your time today, and hope that was of use. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, Harpreet and John, for taking this session. It was indeed a very good session with great details you all shared with the audience. The Q&A panel is still open, and if there are any questions, you can post it there. and we have experts still there monitoring the panel. So the Q&A panel is open. Go ahead and post your questions. And meanwhile, let me share a few slides before you guys leave, and make use of this time. Use the Q&A panel and post your questions. Just a moment. Let me share my screen as well. Yeah, so if you see my slide, as you see, we have great sessions lined up, and all these are part of Global Lockdown webinar series. There are a couple of more webinars lined up, and we are adding them on Basecamp. So this is the link that you can go to, which is basecamp.temenos.com/s/events, and register to these webinars. And make sure you register in advance so that you get timely notifications. The next one that we have is what's new in the Quantum V9 SP1 that we're going to launch this month, and then we are doing the webinar on that topic. So this is coming up next, and then there are a couple other lined up. So make sure you go to the events page on Basecamp and register to these events. Temenos is working heavily to launch this event called Scale Online, and this is for banking developers. So if you're really interested in that, go to Basecamp, and on the right corner you will see the same banner. You can click and register yourself for this event as well. This is on the 18th and 19th, 2 days event in November. So if you're really interested, go ahead and register, and you also get timely updates and other updates about this event once you register. And then I'll take you to the next slide. This I cover in almost all webinars. So we have a Facebook group. If you have not joined it yet, do join, because I do keep posts in here and tell you about what's happening with Temenos, what is the next event coming up. So you get all the details there. Plus we have a similar Temenos Cafe Basecamp group that you can join. This is on Basecamp, and we again in this group post a lot of updates about what's happening, what's new, and other important resources in this group. As I said, the next event is on 26th of August, so which is Quantum V9 SP1 webinar. That's the new service pack that we've launched. We are launching, and we're doing a webinar around it. So make sure you join. And all the past webinars that we have done, all the webinars that we have done in the lockdown series, as well as other webinars that we have covered in the past, they are all available under the events page. So you go and check out on the right hand side, you will see under the events page on the right hand side, you will see there is a small box that'll take you to all the recorded webinars. This will also be recorded. As I said in the beginning, we've recorded this, and this will be again available on the same events page. Lastly, if you have any suggestions about topics, any topic that you want us to cover, you can send it to basecamp@temenos.com, and we'll make sure we'll get the SMEs and cover up the topics. So thank you once again. Really, it was good to have you all. Feel free to post your queries on Basecamp, and we'll be happy to assist. We have a quite active forum available on Basecamp. So in case if you have questions after this event as well, or anything related to Temenos or IBM, make sure you use the platform, forum platform, and post your questions. We'll tag the experts over there. And we hope to see you all again in the next webinar. Do visit the events page and register for the upcoming webinars. I'm going to stop here, stop recording, but we are still available for a couple more minutes. There are a few questions coming up. So the Q&A panel is open for a few more minutes, and then we'll close the session. Thank you. Thanks for your time. Take care.